Big environmental victory. Big environmental victory. You will not see it on CNN. You will not see it on MSNBC. You certainly are not going to read about it in the New York Times. But this victory that just happened in Massachusetts for the anti-pipeline movement, for the anti-climate change movement, is really important. For those of you that don't know, there was a ruling that happened in Massachusetts. Let me bring up the article for you here. More than a dozen protesters who clambered into holes dug for a high-pressure gas pipeline said they had been found not responsible by a judge after hearing them argue their actions to try and stop climate change were a legal necessity. Karina Gore, the daughter of former Vice President Al Gore, was among more than 198 people who were arrested because of their 2015 actions protesting the pipeline in West Roxbury, Massachusetts, a neighborhood of Boston. 13 people were to go on trial this week, though prosecutors downgraded their original criminal charges to one of civil infraction. On Tuesday, Judge Marianne Driscoll of West Roxbury District Court found all 13 defendants not responsible, the equivalent of not guilty in a criminal case. She did so after each of the defendants addressed the judge and explained why they were driven to try and halt the pipeline's construction. Speaking outside the court afterwards, Ms. Gore, 44, director of the Center for Earth Ethics at Union Theological Seminar in New York, said the court's decision was historic. Quote, "What happened today was really important," she said. "The people were found not responsible by reason of necessity. The irony is that we are making ourselves responsible. We're part of the movement that is standing up and saying we won't let this go by on our watch. We won't act like nothing's wrong." Marla Markham of the Climate Disobedience Center, which supported the activists, said that each of the 13 had addressed the judge about why they had been part of the protests against the pipeline, which was constructed by Houston-based company Spectra Energy. Quote, "At the end, she said they were all not responsible by reason of legal necessity. She said she expected an audio recording of the hearing to be made available by the court, and her group would then share it. Neither Ms. Driscoll or the court clerk were available for comment. However, one member of the court staff who asked not to be named confirmed to the Independent the judge had found them not responsible. The person denied, however, that the judge had made the ruling on the grounds of legal necessity." The environmental and academic Bill McKibben, who was to appear as a defense witness for the defendants, said on Twitter, "Good golly, a few minutes ago a Boston judge acquitted 13 pipeline protesters on the grounds that the climate crisis is made it necessary for them to commit civil disobedience. This may be a first in America." So basically what these pipeline protesters did while protesting the West Roxbury pipeline in Massachusetts, were where the pipeline was going to go in, they staged mass funerals. And they essentially dug themselves into the hole where the pipeline was going to be going, not the hole, but the whole path, and pretended to be dead. As obviously symbolic of the effects that oil pipelines are having on our climate. And for the first time, a judge has seemingly found that they are not, I don't know what the terminology is, not responsible, but they are not going to face jail time or anything like that for peaceful, nonviolent opposition to, I believe this was a natural gas pipeline in Massachusetts. I want to show you what some of them said. I think this is Gore. This is Vice President Al Gore's daughter after the ruling.
So, hi, I'm Karina Gore, and I'm with the Center for Earth Ethics at Union Theological Seminary. Was very proud to be a part of this action and this movement here against the West Roxbury lateral pipeline, which is part of a whole system of pipelines, a fossil fuel build out at a time when we're already experiencing climate impacts, when we know that putting more of this pollution into the air is going to cause serious harm and death and suffering for people on the other side of the world and for our own future generations. What happened today was really important. We had a long and winding road, but essentially the people that put themselves in the way of building this fossil fuel pipeline were found not responsible by reason of necessity. And the irony of that is that we are making ourselves responsible. We are part of the movement that's standing up and saying we won't let this go by on our watch. We won't act like nothing's wrong. We're going to be speaking up in new ways. We're going to be demanding that the people who are in elected office and also the corporations who are putting their costs, the cost of their doing business for their own profits, they are putting that cost on the public. They're putting that cost on future generations. And we are taking responsibility to say no to that. So it's really a wonderful day to be with friends in this movement, to understand the importance of what happened, and also to focus on where we go next. We are currently facing a situation with an administration who has made us, the United States, the only country in the world that officially doesn't recognize climate change as a problem. It's not good enough. It's not good enough for our future generations of life, and it's not good enough for our own moral integrity.
So there you have it. Her and the other pipeline demonstrators who basically staged mass funerals were found not liable, or I think she said out of necessity. Out of necessity, they were found not responsible. I mean, that is the most important thing there is the judge ruling out of necessity, because the judge essentially heard their argument as far as climate change has the fact that they're not getting anything through the local government, they're not getting anything through the state government, they're not getting anything through the federal government, and the threat of climate change made it where it was a necessity for them to try and obstruct the pipeline. That has never been ruled in the United States of America before. Granted, it happened in Massachusetts, which is one of the most liberal states in the country. I don't know if that would happen in North Dakota. I doubt it would happen in Texas. But the fact that you have a judge in Massachusetts ruling that activists, environmental activists who basically, again, staged a mass funeral, are not liable or not responsible, is historic. These are 13 climate activists who essentially, as a symbol, put their bodies on the line in a ditch where a pipeline was supposed to go through. And Shadowproof, I want to tell you what Shadowproof reported. Part of why Judge Mary Ann Driscoll found no liability was because they engaged in a sustained effort to end the project and attempted legal remedies by the city council, mayor, and other agencies to stop the pipeline. Even though the pipeline was still constructed and operational by January 2017, that was irrelevant. The judge found the activists were not liable. So, listen, in all the crap we deal with, in all the losses the progressive movement has been dealing with, and all the times that we're getting, oligarchy is victorious, and plutocrats are victorious, and corporations are victorious, and corporate and bought-off owned Democratic politicians are victorious. This is a major deal. This is a major deal that you have a judge essentially ruling climate change made it responsible for them to obstruct the pipeline. So somebody just asked, Chet Zam 4, what does this mean for further cases? I wish I had a crystal ball, but what I can tell you is for other cases where you have resistance to Line 3, which is going through Minnesota and other states, when you have resistance to the Keystone Pipeline, when you have resistance to the Rover Pipeline, when you have resistance to the Algonquin Pipeline, when you have resistance to the Trans-Pecos Pipeline, when you have resistance to the Bayou Bridge Pipeline. I mean, I could read off as many pipelines as you'd like. The defendants, which are the environmental activists, the water protectors, the Native Americans, now can cite Massachusetts as saying, this is a real thing that a judge in Massachusetts found as it was a necessity in Massachusetts where they had to act based on climate change. And lawyers can now use that as I don't know if you could say a statute. I'm not a lawyer, but as an example, as a case study, that The resistance to pipelines, non-violent resistance to stop pipelines, should not result in jail time, should not result in heavy fines. This is America, and environmental activists and water protectors of the Native Americans have a right to protest a pipeline. That's what I'm getting at. You said, yes, precedent, they could cite that as a legal defense. I don't know if it will win in all states. This one in Massachusetts. But will it win in North Dakota? Will it win in South Dakota? Will it win in Texas? That I couldn't tell you. I still have a healthy dose of cynicism. However, you got to take your victories where we can get it. And the fact that this group of 13 activists was found not responsible, as the judge called it, based on necessity, the necessity meaning climate change, is a major, major victory. If I had sound effects, I'd blow fireworks. It's a major, major victory. I have put out an interview request to interview one of the activists who staged these mass funerals in opposition to the West Roxbury pipeline. They got back to me. Hopefully we're going to do that interview tomorrow and bring that to you. Yeah, I think it's super important because, like I said, when have you heard a judge rule that pipeline protesters or environmental activists are not responsible based on the necessity of protesting climate change? HS 4265 says, but they were shut down and that was the point of the government attack on them. Yes, they lost. But to every loss, you have to also find small victories. The pipeline is operational, just like Dakota Access Pipeline is operational. But oligarchy was not created overnight. A society based on legalized bribery did not happen overnight. So it's not going to happen overnight that it comes toppling down. So we can't focus on all the gloom and doom. We got to focus on every small victory, because it's going to take those small victories of a progressive getting elected on the local level, a progressive getting elected on the state level, hopefully eventually on the national level. And victories like this, because this is a precedent now for other cases around the country. And kudos to the judge that heard each defendant, each activist who was part of these mass funerals that were staged in where the pipeline was to be dug. This is very, very important. Of course, Spectra Energy, who built it, they haven't commented. I guarantee you other pipeline companies aren't going to comment because they don't want to give this any attention. Amano says liable for what? My gut would say liable for delays in the pipeline construction and costing the oil company money. That's what my assumption is, that they would be held liable for. Because these oil companies, Energy Transfer Partners, they sued Greenpeace for, I believe, $300 million for delays in the pipeline because these people aren't rich enough. It's an intimidation tactic to sue environmental activists, to try and bankrupt them, to try and scare them, to try and threaten them with jail time, to try and threaten to bankrupt them for life. This is what the oil companies are doing. This is what the politicians who are bought off by the oil companies are allowing them to do. But this is what's happening in Massachusetts. Find the victories where you can in this movement, especially against the oil companies and the bought off politicians. And this is a victory. This is a victory. And I do expect you are going to see this used in court cases around the country where environmental activists from Standing Rock to Keystone to other pipelines have to defend themselves against trumped up charges. So, bravo to Massachusetts for this one.